Retirees all across America are trapped. Right now, in December 2025, they're caught in just an impossible financial bind. This isn't some far-off problem.
No, it's immediate.
And here's the breaking news. Congress just dropped a bill, and it's promising a massive infusion of cash, a flat $200 per month boost for everyone on Social Security, SSI, and SSDI.
This is the exact raise people have been praying for.
Absolutely. It's a lifeline when, just buying groceries feels like a crushing expense.
But that hope is being completely overshadowed by something else, something that's, well, a certainty. While Washington is dangling this $200, the entire system is just sprinting towards a collapse.
A mandated collapse.
The latest numbers are, they're crystal clear. The Social Security Trust Fund is going to hit a crisis point by 2032, and honestly, it might even be sooner than that.
And when that fund hits zero, what happens?
Well, federal law is not flexible on this. It mandates an automatic, across-the-board cut. We're talking about roughly 24% for every single person.
Every person.
Every single beneficiary. Retirees, people on disability, widows, survivors. It's not a political threat. It's the law.
Yeah.
A quarter of their income, gone overnight.
A guaranteed cut. It's the most insane contradiction. We have to really spell this out for everyone listening. The $200 boost, it sounds great. But let's look at the average. The average retirement check right now is about $2,071. That faces a cut of $497 a month under this 24% rule.
And that math is just staggering. The loss is more than double the gain they're promising. You're talking about losing almost $500 to maybe get $200.
So you're saying people who need that $200 to, survive 2026, they're being set up to lose twice that amount just a few years down the road.
That's the setup. It's a brutal calculation.
It's the definition of a short-sighted political move. They're offering this tiny little parachute while the entire plane is just nosediving.
It creates this intense pressure, this psychological game. You're caught between hoping for some breathing room right now and being terrified of total instability later.
The $200 carrot versus the almost $500 stick, That's the reality. So we're going to investigate who actually gets this raise, who stands to lose the most, and why Washington is rushing this bill right now.
The timing is critical.
Stay with us as we expose the full truth right here on News Focus Podcast. If you want the news they don't want you to hear, hit that subscribe button right now.
Okay, so let's jump right into what's happening on Capitol Hill. This isn't happening in a vacuum.
No, this is the new Social Security expansion bill, and it's being pushed hard by Senate Democrats, and all the language is about immediate relief.
And we know why. Aides are saying it's about three things. First, just relentless inflation that's been eating away at fixed incomes for years.
Right.
Second, the huge spike in Medicare premiums, which we'll get into, that basically erased last year's raise for a lot of people.
Yeah, but third,
public backlash, a huge amount. Seniors are organizing, they're calling, and people are finally waking up to how bad things are.
So Congress is feeling the heat. But this fix, this flat $200, is it really for everyone?
The plan is for it to be. They want to cover basically every single category. Retired workers, SSI, SSDI, surviving spouses. The goal is maximum political impact.
So it's designed to be a universal shot in the arm. It bypasses all the, the complicated formulas.
Exactly. It's direct, it's simple to understand, and it's a great headline.
Okay, that's the politics. But the timing, as you said, that's the real story here. Why rush this at the end of 2025? Big changes to Social Security usually take years of fighting.
Well, you have to see this as a sign of urgency, maybe even panic. The only reason to move this fast is because they know the insolvency crisis is getting closer faster than they've been telling the public.
So the 2032 date is the public deadline, but maybe they're seeing internal reports from the CBO or someone saying it's actually 2031 or even 2030.
That's the implication. You don't rush a bill this big unless your timeline is suddenly shrunk.
It's misdirection then. Give people the good news now so you don't have to talk about the terrifying long-term reality.
That's what experts are saying. This is an election year talking point, and it completely ignores the structural time bomb. And here's the worst part. If the raise passes without a real funding fix,
a tax increase or something.
Right. Without that, the raise doesn't just ignore the crisis. It actually makes it happen sooner. It accelerates the timeline to that 24% cut.
Wait, hold on. Let's stop right there. That is the single most important detail. Are you saying the $200 boost could literally just vanish the second the trust fund runs out?
That is the fear. And it shows you how cynical this is. Once the trust fund is empty, by law, They can only pay out what's coming in from current payroll taxes.
Yeah,
That's why the 24% cut is mandated.
I see.
So if you pump billions more out of the fund with this raise, but you don't put anything new in, you're just draining the tank faster.
It's just simple math.
It is. If this boost costs, say, $100 billion over 5 years, that money comes straight out of the reserves. That hole you just created could easily pull the 2032 deadline forward to 2031, maybe even sooner.
So seniors get a few years of relief.
And then they hit the cliff, a harder cliff, and they hit it a year or two earlier than they expected.
It's unbelievable. And while this whole game is playing out, millions of people are just stuck in limbo.
Total limbo. That's the eligibility uncertainty. They announced this huge, life-changing number, but until the final bill is written, nobody knows for sure if it applies to them.
And people need to make their budgets for next year now. What's the holdup with the fine print?
The rules for Social Security are just immensely complicated. So staffers are trying to figure out the thresholds, like what's the age? Does it start at 62 or full retirement age?
And what about survivors?
Survivor rules are a nightmare, especially with divorce and remarriage. And the big one is dual beneficiaries.
That's when someone gets their own retirement check plus a spousal or survivor benefit.
Yes. So how do you apply a flat $200 boost? This is $200 per person, or $200 per check they receive. One of those is astronomically more expensive than the other.
Of course.
And until they figure that out, you have millions of families watching the news just hoping for relief, but knowing a single line in the final bill could cut them out completely.
So while Congress is debating giving people $200, the system is already set up to take money away. Silently.
Yes, the invisible drain. That's the Medicare clawback.
Specifically, Medicare Part B premiums.
This is a guaranteed problem. The 2026 Medicare Part B surprise is just, it's brutal. Premiums are set to jump by nearly 10%.
10%.
It's one of the steepest hikes we've seen in years.
Yeah.
And it hits at the exact same time seniors get their annual cost of living adjustment, the COLA.
Wait, a 10% jump in premiums, but the COLA for 2026 is only projected to be 2.8%.
You see the problem? For a huge number of retirees, that one premium hike will wipe out half, or maybe even all, of their COLA increase.
So someone gets a $50 raise from the DOA,
Right.
and then their Medicare premium goes up by $40. So their real actual increase is $10 before they've even bought food.
And food and rent are going up way faster than 2.8%. This is why people are so angry. They see the headline about a CLA increase, they get that little bit of hope.
And then they see the Part B deduction on their statement, and the raise just evaporates into the healthcare system like it was never even there.
And that's why even a 2.8% CLA feels like nothing. It doesn't reflect anyone's actual life. Seniors are looking at their bills for groceries, utilities, and medicine, and that number just feels like a lie.
It feels like a joke.
And we have to talk about the political reason for that number. Economists are now calling it the Trump bump.
The Trump bump.
Yes. There's real data linking President Trump's tariff adjustments from 2025 and 2026 to a measurable increase in inflation in the specific categories the TLA tracks.
So his trade policies made goods more expensive, which created more inflation, which then, ironically, led to a slightly higher COA for seniors.
Exactly. It's a complete paradox. On the surface, it looks like a good thing. But here's the track. The COA is a temporary one-year boost to catch up with inflation.
But the higher prices are permanent.
Higher prices are permanent. They're baked into the economy now. So you get this tiny short-term bump, but the starting line for all your expenses has been moved permanently further away. You're always behind.
So it's a sugar high. It feels good for a second, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem.
And that brings us to the core mechanical flaw in the entire system. The formula itself is broken.
The formula flaw. Explain why the CPIW is just the wrong tool for this job.
Okay, so the government uses something called the CPIW, the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. It was designed to track the spending habits of, well, younger working people.
People who commute, who buy work clothes, that sort of thing.
Right. And that's the fundamental problem. The basket of goods it measures is completely wrong for seniors.
Give us some examples.
The CPIW puts a lot of weight on things like gasoline, new and used cars, and clothing. It pretty much minimizes the things that dominate a retiree's budget.
Which are?
Out-of-pocket medical costs, prescription drugs, and utilities. So when the cost of a life-saving drug jumps 15% in a year, the CPIW barely notices because healthcare costs are just a tiny fraction of its calculation.
So the formula is more worried about the price of a gallon of gas than the cost of someone's heart medication. It's a total disconnect. So why haven't they fixed it? Why not switch to the CPIE, the one for the elderly?
Well, there are two reasons, and one is more cynical than the other. The simple reason is that it's just easier for the government to use one main index for everything.
Administrative simplicity.
Yes, but the real reason is that the CPIW saves the government money. It systematically keeps the annual COLA lower than the CPIE would. A smaller raise each year means the government pays out less in benefits over time. It's a way of, trimming costs under the radar.
So by using the wrong formula, they're artificially slowing the drain on the trust fund.
At the direct expense of seniors' ability to survive. It is a policy choice with devastating consequences over a 30-year retirement.
And the cost of that choice has been calculated, right?
It has. Advocates have shown that if the CPIE had been used for the last few decades, the average senior would have received hundreds of dollars more every single year. Cumulatively, that's tens of thousands of dollars lost over retirement.
Just stolen by a broken formula.
It's a long systemic history of underpayment. And that pain, that history, is why Congress is finally being forced to look at not just a big check, but at these smaller, specific injustices that have been ignored for so long.
Which brings us to another bill that's getting less attention.
Far less attention, but it's incredibly important. It's called the SWIFT Act. And it's designed to fix some of the outdated and, frankly, unfair rules around survivor benefits.
And the name SWIFT tells you they see this as an urgent fix. What's so outdated about the current rules?
Most of these rules were written in the 1960s and 70s. They were based on a single-earner household model, shorter life expectancies, lower costs of living. They're totally obsolete in today's world.
They don't account for dual-income families or the insane cost of long-term medical care today.
Not at all. And the pressure to fix this is coming from the reality that millions of surviving spouses are facing poverty because their benefits are capped at these ancient levels.
So what does the SWIFT Act actually change?
The first change is huge, especially for people with disabilities. It would allow widowed and surviving divorced spouses with disabilities to get 100% of their survivor benefits, no matter their age.
100%.
Yes. Right now, if you become disabled before your full retirement age, your benefit can be significantly reduced. It's an artificial penalty. The SWIFT Act gets rid of it.
That's life-changing. I mean, think about a 55-year-old whose spouse, the main earner, dies. She's already disabled, she's got huge medical bills, and then the system cuts her benefit on top of that.
It's the difference between keeping your home and falling into a spiral of debt. The second big change is modernizing what are called child in care benefits.
That's for surviving parents who are raising kids.
Right. And the current rules about who counts as a dependent child are rigid and decades old. The SWIFT Act updates them to reflect the modern reality of raising children in 2025, especially children with disabilities.
It recognizes that being a full-time caregiver means you can't work full-time, so the benefit has to make up for that lost income, which the current system just fails to do.
Let's use a real-world example. Imagine a widow, Maria, who's caring for her severely disabled 22-year-old son. Because he's over 18, under the old rules, she often loses her child in care benefit.
Even though her caregiving duties are 24/7 and she has zero ability to go out and get a job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The SWIFT Act would expand the definition to include disabled adult children who are fully dependent. It would mean Maria could get that 100% benefit, which translates directly into affording the care and equipment her son needs.
So this pressure on Congress, it's coming from two places. The huge existential threat of the 24% collapse is driving the big $200 raise. And then this detailed human-level suffering is driving these smaller, more surgical fixes like the SWIFT Act.
That's a perfect way to put it. The SWIFT Act is proof that lawmakers know the most vulnerable people, the disabled, the survivors, are already living the crisis, long before the 2032 deadline.
Okay, so let's pull back and look at the whole picture. This isn't just a policy fight. It's a full-on political war. And there are 75 million Americans caught in the middle.
It really is. And you have two completely different visions clashing in Washington right now.
So on one side, you have the Democrats.
Their strategy is all about aggressive expansion. They're pushing the $200 boost. They want to reform the COLA formula with the CPIE. They support things like the SWIFT Act. Their entire message is, we are fighting to get you a bigger check right now.
And then you have the Republican strategy, often voiced by former President Trump, which is, we will never cut Social Security.
It's a very powerful promise. But it's a complicated position because their own trade policies, the Trump bump, actually made the funding problem more urgent. They don't want to cut benefits, but they are also very resistant to the main tool that could prevent the cuts,
Tax hikes.
tax hikes. And that's the political kryptonite that neither side wants to touch.
Let's talk about those real solutions for a second, the ones that could actually fix this.
Well, the actuaries at the Social Security Administration basically say there are two main levers you can pull. First, you can lift or just get rid of the payroll tax cap.
That's the income limit, right? Right now, you only pay Social Security tax on income up to around $168,000.
Correct. So if you make $1 million, most of your income isn't taxed for Social Security. Lifting that cap would make the wealthy pay more into the system and could push back the insolvency date by decades.
But the political blowback for raising taxes, even on the wealthy, is huge.
Massive. So the other option, often favored by some Republicans, is means testing.
Which means reducing or even eliminating benefits for high-income retirees. If you have a huge pension and other assets, you'd get less from Social Security or maybe nothing.
Yes, that would also save billions. But again, the political backlash from people who feel they've paid into the system their whole lives and earned that benefit, regardless of their wealth, it's just too toxic for most politicians.
So because both real solutions are politically impossible, they're paralyzed.
They're paralyzed. So they opt for these temporary fixes like the $200 boost that they know don't solve the underlying structural problem at all.
And the clock is just ticking down faster and faster. But let's bring this back to the person listening right now. Forget the bills in Congress for a minute. What is actually showing up in their mailbox this month?
This is the final moment of truth, and it's delivered by the post office. All through December, beneficiaries are getting their official notices for 2026.
And this letter, it's not a promise, it's the hard numbers.
It's the non-negotiable reality. It will spell out their exact 2.8% COLA increase, the exact and very large Medicare Part B deduction, and then at the bottom, their final net payment.
That envelope is what contains the dread. It's the final answer on the Medicare clawback.
And this is where the cynicism is just off the charts. You have lawmakers in D.C. on TV talking about a huge $200 raise, offering all this hope. Meanwhile, the Social Security Administration is mailing out letters delivering the bad news.
The news that their raise might have completely vanished because of the Medicare hike.
For millions, it will have vanished completely, leaving them with no effective raise at all. At the exact same time, politicians are patting themselves on the back for providing relief.
They're delivering the bad news quietly by mail while shouting the good news from the rooftops. It is the ultimate disconnect between Washington and reality.
That letter makes it all official. This is the system we're dealing with. It's built on decades of bad math and political cowardice, and now it's speeding toward a cliff while everyone argues about the snacks on the plane.
So the truth of all this is it's brutally simple.
It is. A $200 boost is on the table. That's the short-term hope. But a 24% cut is still coming. That's the long-term, legally mandated certainty.
And seniors are just stuck between a little bit of relief that might help them breathe for a year and the absolute terror of a cut that could destroy their stability and their dignity.
The choices Congress makes in the next few months will echo for a generation. The era of kicking the can down the road is over. The road has run out.
It's a generational crisis that's going to affect every single American, whether you're retired or not.
That's the reality we're facing. But I want to know what you think. Congress is using the $200 raise as political theater while the 24% cliff gets closer. Is this a genuine effort to help seniors or a cynical move to distract from the collapse? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. We read every single one. I'm Alex Hatchett. And I'm Sophia. Thanks for listening to News Focus.